Hi folks, John Dunn here, RPG freelancer, publisher behind Melior Via, and I am up here at Immortals tonight with Mikey.
What is going on, John? Feel good to be here. It's kind of nasty outside, but we'll flip that switch real quick with this little podcast.
I thought we would talk a little bit about the Divine today.
Ooh, the Divine. That's what I was saying. That's exactly why I said that.
Oh, good lead in then.
Yeah.
Well played.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about Angels, Demons, and Beings Between. Volume 1, Patrons and Spells for DCC.
Daemons? What are...
So it's kind of a British spelling of demon.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not just me. It usually always is.
It usually is. So this is for Dungeon Crawl Classics and is published by Goodman Games. And this is kind of an expansion of a 2012 release. And though I think this came back out a few years ago in 2016. The writing team on this were Bishop, Wolf, and Fisher. And I believe at least 2 of them were involved in that original 2012 release. The core focus of this book really is deities, right? So entities that your characters have basically a worship relationship with. In the game, they're explicitly called patrons. I think there's 3 of them in the core Dungeon Crawl Classics book. This book introduces 21 new ones, and then it also introduces 3 demi-patrons. All these different beings are very well themed, and they've got powers that kind of tie into their themings. I'm not going to go through all 21 of them, and I'm not going to really get into the demi-patrons at all, but I just kind of picked 4 that jumped out at me as ones that I thought were particularly interesting, and we're going to use them as examples a little bit for what different ones are in here. One of them I wanted to talk about is Dagon, which you might have heard that name before, because Dagon is a being from the Cthulhu mythos. He is a deep one deity, basically, of the deep oceans. Then you've got Hecate, who is a goddess typically associated with witchcraft. Mab, who is the Fey queen of air and darkness. And Set Utek, the destroyer, who is Set, typically from the Egyptian mythology.
I need him on my team.
Have you heard of any of them before?
No, not at all.
All right.
Well, I was going to ask you, are deities mostly positively reinforced? Are they always...
Well, they can be, but not shockingly, I didn't pick any positive ones. Yeah, these are...
Why would you do that?
These are not nice beings, right? The game is really focused, or the material here for the game is really focused on how these entities serve as patrons, right? So they're the beings that might sponsor a character and provide them with some power. In Dungeon Crawl Classics, there's the Patron Bond spell that lets a character go out and try and establish a bond with a being, and that really only works for wizards and maybe elves. This book also suggests that maybe you don't just want to do it that way. Maybe you want to use these patrons as driving forces for your campaign. They can be the beings that are manipulating the other NPCs, or they might be the beings that are manipulating the whole party. So maybe you just give your players a patron bond. And if you're doing that, hey, maybe you can use it with other game systems too. You might want to look through this material and say, hey, how can I use this with 5th edition D&D or Savage Worlds or Pathfinder? Because the content that's here, I think, could be adapted in a pretty straightforward way.
Oh, and it makes it easily adaptable through this book?
Yeah, I think what's in here would be very easy to adapt to other game systems and could be a driving force for a campaign.
That is really cool because it, adds a lot of more options, actually.
No question about it.
It's really cool.
Now, each of these patrons gets a write-up that ranges from 5 to 16 pages. Most of them are sitting in the 7-8 page range. I think also if you wanted to create a patron, having this many of them at hand to look through could create a really nice template for you if you wanted to set one up for your own campaign that was different from these. Having another 21 beyond the few that are in the core book just gives you a better idea of what different things you can do with a patron. Once you have this relationship with a patron, you can invoke it. Now again, explicitly there's a spell for that, but if maybe you gave that patron connection to another character, you might want to enable that to happen through some other way. Maybe they pay some kind of price for that. When they do invoke their patron, there's a chart for what happens. Those charts are all well themed, and cool stuff happens that generally aids the PCs. Talking about those few deities that I mentioned, Hecate might, if you roll decently on the chart, send you a few hellhounds to help out with you. They kind of crack opens in the ground. They come crawling out, and they eat the guys you're fighting.
Can you pet them?
They're hellhounds. They're kind of hot.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that. I was gonna ask that first. Are they hot? So
it might be an unpleasant relationship, but they might stick around longer than you want. Then you got to feed hellhounds. You got to explain that brimstone smell. Something to consider.
Love hurts.
Yeah. Sedutek might make a patron take on his appearance. So Set usually has a jackal's head. So suddenly having a jackal's face could be kind of inconvenient for you.
That's humbling for sure.
But while you've got that jackal's face, you gain a killing touch, which is kind of cool. So, you touch somebody and they just die.
That's like your homie asked for a handshake.
Well, usually you're not going to invoke your deity before you shake hands with a buddy. It's more a matter of, hey, I'm dying here. Somebody help me.
I'd hope so.
Yeah. Interacting with your patron a lot can cause you to develop a taint that's distinct to the patron. And the more you do it, the more severe that can become. Dagon's followers might gain kind of a fishy frog-like appearance. Mab's followers might become obsessed with spending all their time asleep so that they can spend it in the dream world.
Melatonin.
There you go.
Melatonin's a drug, baby.
Characters who have a patron can gain spells from that patron. So Mab's followers might gain a spell that lets them actually use their dream state to travel between locations.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, so you travel in the dream world and then you wake up there in the real world.
Do you think we'd have a podcast in the dream world, or would we just...
Well, we'd be famous in the dream world,
yeah.
Right? Yeah. Sedutek enables his followers to create canoptic jars of force. So you know what a canoptic jar is?
No, but I know there's force in it.
Well, there isn't usually. They're the jars that when somebody gets mummified, you take the organs out and put them in.
Okay, yeah.
So,
dude, that brings back a lot, yeah.
All right. So you create these canoptic jars using his spell, and then you can arrange them to create force walls. It's kind of cool. You can also have spell burn associated with the patron. So in DCC, you can invoke spell burn to cast your spells at a more powerful level. And if you have a patron, they kind of pay the cost for that. Hecate, for instance, might give you extra energy and say, oh, you can pay me later for that. I'll let you know when and how that payback will come. Which, for the game master, that's like everybody's dream, right? Player has to do what you want them to at some convenient time later for you. That's just fun. For Dagon, invisible fishes start to nibble at the soul of the follower to pay back that spell burn. Yeah, it's fun.
So pedicure?
Not really. Not necessarily the feet. More, the soul.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Lastly, it talks about demi-patrons, which are lesser entities. So the ones I mentioned are all very powerful, godlike beings. Demi-patrons are less powerful ones that might have a limited sphere of influence. They might, be kind of obscure, so they don't have many followers. And so they can't offer as many or as powerful benefits as a full-fledged patron can. On the flip side, PCs might take multiple demi-patrons, or the demi-patrons might be less selective about the followers they choose, which again offers the Game Master more hooks for how they can use that. This is about 180 pages. It is hardcover. It is fully black and white illustrated. And it is $40 up here on the shelf at Immortals Inc. or available through immortalsinc.com. If you need a book of cool supernatural beings like this to drive your campaign, this might be just the thing you're looking for.
And the link to buy it is right below if you want to do it that way. Doesn't matter.
Till next time, folks, good gaming.
Peace.